Okie dokie, everyone. You are now joining me and Cookie Dog over here in our living room because my normal studio is filled with crap. So, forgive the dogs. They're not working outside for once, but the dogs will still be in my lap because I refuse to shut them in the next door or in the bedroom. So, stick with me and let's try to get through this. Alright, so this week was How to Survive a Slasher. And great cover. Whoever designed this cover, perfect. I like the idea of the book, which is very reminiscent of 80s and 90s horror. So it starts out with basically a whole bunch of campers died way back when, and there's only 3 survivors. I'm like, alright, cool. Those 3 survivors had kids, but someone came for vengeance about 20 years after the initial massacre and kills off the survivors and all the survivors' children. Let me take a moment to say that this was shelved in the young adult section of my library, and I personally believe that given a little bit of kick, this could have just been shelved under the adult section for more than just the slasher genre homages. But anyway, and so the book, thankfully, one of the guy's wife, she was in labor at the time, or she was in the hospital at that time because her twins were in the NICU. And so the wife survived, the twins survived, and for some reason the killer did not go after the other 2 children who were in the house, which was a girl and a boy, I think like 6 and 5, something like that, or no, 12 and a little younger than 12. But anyway, flash forward 7 years, and the mom's going all, by day she's this sweet, mild-spoken kindergarten teacher, but after hours she's freaking G.I. Jane over here, training her kids to be able to defend themselves and run from an attacker at all instances, and da-da-da-da. Hey, cool. And so girl gets home, I forget her name, I think it's CJ. This author picked the weirdest first name for our main character, and then proceeds to just call her CJ for the whole time. So I think it's like Cassiopeia. Yeah, Cassiopeia Jane is her name, which is a mouthful, but thankfully she goes by CJ. Anyway, she gets home, she's, the town for some reason has turned this series of murders into a festival day, even though it's supposed to be a memorial, which is just kind of screwed up. So she's kind of depressed at that. Instead of just checking her kids out for the week and, taking them literally anywhere but this town, the mom has her go to school anyway. And at the front door, there's a box left addressed to CJ. CJ takes it to her room, opens it up, and it's this 3rd novel in this installment of the Slasherville horror series, which is based on the actual murders. And of course, she's pissed off because 1, how did the guy even get her address? And 2, why does he keep doing this? Because he's the author of the books detail not only the murders, but a lot of the inner workings of the families and thoughts and feelings that really no one else would know. So she goes to throw it away, but then curiosity gets the better of her, and she opens it up, and it's like, oh, it's detailing the events that are about to occur over the next couple days. And not too long after that, I quit reading. Mostly because the author decided to really force politics into this. And I believe there is a time and a place for everything, but it really takes the sting out of a horror to pause the entire narration to go on to a tangent about preferred pronouns. Because hear me out, let me set the setting of this. So Moonsatter is the author of this book, In-World, or In-Universe, who is writing all these very detailed, horrific accounts of these murders and taking a lot of glee from it. He's writing stuff that is very specific, and now he is writing a book about the next couple days and all the murders and how it's going to go down. This guy is clearly off his rocker, but still chooses correct pronouns. And that just, I know I'm probably not describing it really well, and I guess that's my job as the YouTube host over here, to try to make it make sense, but there's no reason to have completely paused the narrative of the story to shove this aspect in. Because the guy, as we'll find out later, either is the murderer, or I'm pretty sure he is the murderer. I won't lie, I didn't finish the book. But it's like, why is he so okay writing all this other fucked up shit? But heaven forbid he gets the pronouns wrong, which, I mean, grant you, I think gets revealed later, because I did skim a little bit in an attempt to get through this for y'all. I skimmed it, and it sounds like it's her uncle, which then makes it all the more obvious of, okay, this is the person, whoever, she should have realized early on that Moonshatter had to be someone related to them, or else how would he have known all this information? And it just, I wish I was more eloquent for y'all, because I would be able to explain why this is a jarring thing within the novel. And it's not just about regular old politics and my belief in them, but it's how the politics are presented to the audience through the book. And this is not interwoven within the story in a believable manner. This is straight up like someone hit the pause button and the author yelled, oh, literally this is the word, so, oh, by the way, she's queer and she doesn't identify as she. And I just felt like that was it took me completely out of the story. There's at least one other thing that took me out of the story, and that was also the description of the twins' terrible diarrhea shits that had no reason being in there. So it's not just this. The author had a tendency to just not read the room. Like, I'll get onto that in a minute, but it's just, I found it to be distasteful, crammed down your throat politics. And it had no place in what should have been a fun slasher romp of a book. And I like a good sarcastic final girl. I love a good horror parody. But I just found this to be honestly bad. And not only was it in first person, so it's not just the politics, but it's the fact that the only good thing about this book is its cover. I was really annoyed because it just went weird. Like, the twins, they're like 6 years old at this point. They all go out to eat ice cream, and there's some banter and da-da-da-da, and they get back to the house, and she goes to get a shower, but the little kid literally stops and goes, oh, I have to poop, and does his business. And then the author takes time out of the book, not only to include that scene, but to then include thoughts when she enters the bathroom about how bad it smells, and he must be lactose intolerant, and all this other stuff that I just found very cringeworthy, very much like I don't want to have to read this, because it doesn't advance the plot. I know later I skimmed through, and I'm sorry, I'm also not interested in teenagers talking about DILFs and MILFs and all the other ILFs. And so maybe I'm the wrong audience for it, but I do believe that since this is a book that it's technically, I think, shelved in the teen section of my library. So maybe it's just a case that I've not been a teenager in a while, and I am not in the modern audience for this setting, for it to just really click with me. But I know when I think this character is 17, but when I was 17, I did not want politics in my books because I had to deal with it enough as is. And maybe that's how I don't know if that's how teens feel now, but I know at 17 I was so sick and tired of hearing about who to vote for, how to vote, how to think, that when I read a book, I wanted to just escape into whatever it was. And if someone passed me a book and said, hey, look, it's Friday the 13th, but the guy's in a wolf mask, or it's Halloween, but he's in a wolf mask instead of, Michael Myers, I'd go, oh my gosh, give me that book, because I would rather read about that than read about how crappy teachers get paid and or her prescription's old and she doesn't have another set of glasses. Because, I get it. That is a reality for a lot of people. My mother was a teacher. I fully understand tight budgets. But I feel like the author could have done a lot better in presenting this information where it didn't just feel like a laundry list of poor me's, It could have been a very simple thing of going, oh crap, I can't break my glasses, or oh, I need to get a glasses checkup the next free clinics next week, or man, we're stuck in this apartment, which brings into the thing of why didn't the mom move them after the fact? Because I'm sorry, if my husband would have been brutally murdered in a town, I ain't sticking around. Especially when the town turns a memorial service into a fair and festival day. I would have upped and moved my kids out in a heartbeat. But the whole book just feels jarring, and I don't know how old the author is, but in some respects it does also feel like someone attempting to put on airs that they are up with all the hip young people terminology. That's a good way of saying it. I feel like the author wanted to write a young adult book and then proceeded to write caricatures of what teenagers would be like and then tweak it a little to make it more liberal. And the overall book just reads like she really wanted to write a slasher film, but like make it a political commentary at the same time. But I don't think she chose the right storyline or the right audience to make her point. And any book, I find that very aggravating because you pick this up, it's horror. It's got all the cool billings to be a nice homage to the older horror, but spun to newer, more modern times. And it didn't have that, and I won't lie, that kind of pissed me off. Because if I wanted to read political, I could grab any other book around from any other section. But please don't go jamming it into my genre fiction. It's just, I don't like it. I wish I had a teenager I could just ask and go, hey, what you think of this? And get their perspective on it, because I think that would be a interesting thing. Because one day I'd love to find out, what do people who are the age demographic for these books, what do they actually think when they see stuff like that? Is it just me? Am I too jaded by politics at this point in my life? Or is it actually just a problem? Are there teens out there going, man, I would love to just read a nice, good potato chip novel, but I can't because it's always going to be someone's commentary on healthcare or voting or sexuality or... Once again, this is a horror novel. This is not a romance. I don't give a rat's ass about anyone's sexuality. I want to see slashers. And I'm sorry to get mad, but once again, lovely cover. Terrible plot. I'm tired of seeing politics everywhere I go. Because trust me, the politics have been shitty as long as I've been around. It ain't gonna change. So give your author or give your readers a chance to just escape from the crappy situation. So, sorry for the rant, guys. It disappoints me. I want there to do better. And I've been reading a lot, and I've been listening to a lot of other people who are a lot smarter than me discuss literacy in America. And if I know how to do it, and if I figure it out, I will link to y'all an interesting video down below about how America's literacy has absolutely tanked, and by default, or as a result of all that, authors have also lessened in quality. And there's a girl, it's Hillary Lane, I'll share her down below. She does a much better job about eloquently describing the problem, and I guess the problem is I read this on the heels of listening to her discuss it, And I realized that, wow, this really is just written poorly. Um, it's not eloquent, it's not stylistic. Um, it's a lot of very, very basic sentences strung together to make a story. And I guess maybe it just caught me on a bad day, but when you read stuff written before this and written before they got away from phonics and all that, you'll really see how badly uh, the literature world has suffered over the last 2 decades or so. And so forgive me if I'm aggravated by all this, but I just want people to do better. So I would not read this. If you want horror, if you want slasher, I'm sure there's a ton of other authors out there, including Christina Arden from last week, and then the Clackety. I don't have the book next to me right now, but next week's review is the Clackety. They're both they're both writers who I believe do very, very well at writing nicely. And so, yeah, that's my DNF for this week. It was just not good prose, too much politics, and I'm sorry, I do not want to hear about a 6-year-old with the shits. So, until next time, peace out and read something good.